evening. Welcome to the April 5th, 2017 meeting of the Gaithersburg Planning Commission. How many we got here tonight? We got us all here tonight. So Phil will be acting as alternate tonight. But thank you for joining us.
Except on,
Sure.
he was at the Hyatt House public hearing, so.
Okay, well, we'll get to that, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. First up is the approval of the minutes from our March 15th, 2017 meeting. Is there a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the minutes of March 15, 2017, as read into the record.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. All right, then what's up next is a sign permit agenda. We have two tonight. The first is sign-13589-2017 Peace Wellness Foot Spa at 328 Main Street in the MXD Mixed Use Development Zone. This is for an icon sign approval and presenting from staff is Ray Rooks. Good evening, Ray.
Good evening, how are y'all?
Okay, how you doing?
This application is for sign 13589, 2017, located at 328 Main Street, Suite 200 in the Kitlands. The application comes before the Planning Commission because the proposed sign contains an image of a flower, which is considered an icon sign under Section 24-212J of the City Sign Ordinance. Any sign containing any form of a person, animal, vegetable, food, or product requires Planning Commission approval. The applicant is requesting an 18 square foot building sign which is not internally or externally lit in the rear of the building on the second floor. There is a sign package for this part of Kentlands, and the applicant is revising the proposed sign plans to reflect the required letter and sign height. The proposed sign is consistent with other signage in this area, and staff finds that the proposed sign is in conformance with the city sign ordinance when not superseded by the Kentlands sign package. I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Any questions?
Is that a banner or is that a sign?
It is an actual sign.
It's an actual sign.
Yes, sir.
The other question I have is, in the window of the, let's see, the evidence we have here before us, there's also a sign in the window below the sign itself. Is that part of the package, or is that unique?
Are you looking at the right window or the left window?
Correct, the right window.
It's not part of the application, no.
And is that allowed?
It is. Signs within windows, though, do not require sign permits to be issued by the city.
Thank you.
And they're only allowed to cover a certain percentage of the
Of the
window.
window.
Yeah.
And that is within the, I assume, within the scope. Okay. Thank
All
you.
right, any other questions?
Yeah, I posed a question to staff if this application had received the approval of the Kentlands Historic Trust, and I've been told no, so I would recommend that we add that as a condition.
Commercial?
Yes, there are
The live
live
work
work
units.
requirements.
Live work, okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Is that a prerequisite for city approval? I don't think so, is it?
It is. It falls under the enforcement of the guidelines.
Right. But we don't need it in hand to, for
As
our
a condition?
approval,
No, no.
So we don't have to put it as a condition.
right? Okay.
It can be made a
prior
condition.
to
You
made
can
a
still
condition.
approve it.
It can be made, yeah.
Okay. Mhm.
What's that?
It can be made a condition.
Okay.
That's
But we don't
fine.
have to defer for that?
No, no.
No.
All right. Okay, any other questions? Is there
No.
anyone in the audience that would like to comment on this application? Okay. Ray, what's the recommendation?
Staff recommends that the Planning Commission, based on the exhibits included in the staff report, finding and recommendations, grant sign 13589, 2017 for the Peace Wellness Foot Spa sign, finding it in compliance with Section 24-212 of the City Sign Code with 2 conditions, plus the one just discussed.
Excellent. Any questions, discussion on that?
No?
All right, seems like a reasonable request, so
Yes.
is there a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, I move that we, based on the exhibits submitted in the staff report, findings and recommendations, that we grant sign 13589-2017 approval, finding it in compliance with section 24-212 of the city code with the 3 conditions that we had discussed that are here and the one that we just added.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thanks very much. And that takes us to the second sign application, which looks interestingly a lot like the first one.
Yes, they are very
Um,
similar.
Sign-13590-2017, the Moon Foot Spa at 406 Main Street in the MXD Mixed Development Zone. Again, an icon sign approval. Ray, take it away.
This application is for sign 13590, 2017, located at 406 Main Street, Suite 200, in the Kitlands as well. The application comes before the Planning Commission because the proposed sign contains an image of a flower as well, which is considered an icon sign under Section 24-212J of the City Sign Ordinance. Any sign containing any form of a person, animal, vegetable, food, or product requires Planning Commission approval. The applicant is requesting a 18 square foot building sign which is not internally or externally lit in the rear of the building on the second floor. There is not a sign package that is approved for this portion of Kentlands, and the proposed sign is consistent with other signage in the area. Staff finds that the proposed sign is in conformance with the city sign ordinance. As such, staff recommends that the Planning Commission, based on the exhibits included in the staff report, findings, and recommendation, grant sign 13589 2017 Moon Foot Spa, finding it in compliance with section 24-212 of the city sign code with no conditions.
All right, very good. Any questions?
I believe the property is actually in Lakelands, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. And I would say they also have requirements, but there might be a little bit more tricky. Trudy, you may provide some guidance.
Well, I believe when these live-work units were approved, they adopted the same sign package
Yeah.
as the Kentlands one. So we're going to do some more research and see if they are Lakeland's Architectural Control Committee will review this also.
Okay, sounds good.
It's the design, DRC, Design Review Committee. That's what it's called in Lakelands.
Okay.
Any other questions, concerns? Anybody in the audience want to comment on this? Okay. Seeing nobody, then I guess, Ray, what's the recommendation, please?
Staff recommends that the Planning Commission, based on the exhibits included in the staff report, findings, and recommendation, grant sign 13589 2017 Moon Foot Spa, finding it in compliance with section 24-212 of the city sign code with no conditions, except that which is just discussed.
All right, very good. So the one condition to have the
One condition.
DRC look at it. Okay, any
Just add a
discussion?
little note.
Sure.
They should have wanted to, and did want to add to the first applicant too. It's just that all these live-work units back to a parking lot, but then you have to come through the buildings to get to the face of our pedestrian street. They're Main Street, so that all these signs sort of on the back side of these units there's a lot of good reason to have a lot of signage back there in order to keep people directioned
Yes,
back around to the
wayfinding.
front.
Sure.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
didn't want to think, because it's on the back side, on the second floor, it's an extraneous sign. It's actually very purposeful, so.
Good point. All right, is there a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, I move that the Planning Commission, based on exhibits submitted in the staff report, findings and recommendations, grant sign 13590 2017 approval, finding it in compliance with section 212 of the city code with the one condition that we just discussed.
Second.
Let's move to the second and all in favor.
Before it's
Okay.
voted on, is it clear what that condition is? I'm just listening to the actual words. Are we asking,
That the Lakeland's DRC review
Right.
them.
you're simply
If-
asking
if
that
the
they
guy-
review it or approve
Yes.
it?
If whatever the
Whatever the condition
guidelines
is,
say,
yeah.
we don't have the DRC guidelines in
Right,
front
I
of us,
understand.
but we suspect there's some provision to review live work units on the Lakeland side of the line. We just don't know what that is.
So the condition is that they review it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not that they approve it.
No. I think it's whatever the governing documents for the DRC say they are supposed to do.
Which would be approval, I believe.
Well, that's what
Could be-
staff can research.
It could
Yeah.
be
And
know,
they review
and
it.
advise instead of approval,
Yeah.
so.
So whatever the.
We need a
whatever-
letter from them saying they reviewed it. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't know for sure what their authority is, so whatever that is, and the staff can work that out.
or approval to the limit of their authority. Sounds like what
Oh,
what
that
you
sounds
mean.
good. Nicely done.
Should be a lawyer, Frank.
Okay.
Happy to help.
All right. With that clarification, then we have a motion, and it's been seconded, I believe. So,
Yes, it has.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Thanks very much, Ray. And is the applicant here? Yes. Okay, good. Oh, no, I meant to refer to the signs.
Oh,
That's all.
sorry.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. But Caroline, your applicant is
Speaking in
equally as
advance.
important. Trust me on that. Next up is we have a recommendation to the Board of Appeals. It's for BOA-7515-2017, Robert J. Wilson Jr., 11 DeSalem Avenue in the R90 Medium Density Residential Zone. For a special exception, this is a recommendation again to the Board of Appeals for the special exception on a rooming house. So Caroline,
Good
take it away,
evening.
please.
This is a recommendation to the Board of Appeals for a special exception. It's BOA 7515-2017 at 11 DeSalem Avenue, which is right here in blue, just off of South Frederick Avenue, and then coming down DeSalem. This rooming house has actually, just to give a bit of history, has been in operation since about 1980, I believe, under two different owners. And the property did change zones in 2009 to the CD zone, and then the special exception was no longer required. It became a permitted use. The zoning was then reverted through a court case back to R90, so they need to reestablish their special exception. Dr. Wilson is here. He is the owner that was the last owner when it last received a special exception back, I believe, in 2009. So I will turn it over to him.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's pretty clearly stated in the documentation. As was stated, it's been operated this way since 1980. I've had two special exceptions. I believe it was 2005, 2008. It remains virtually the same as far as its operation and its setup, configuration, and so on and so on. So, not to waste any time, I'll just be here if you have any questions.
Okay, good. Any questions?
It's a thorough report, so.
Yeah, okay. I had one just clarification, and you know, kind of the, one of the problems with Google Maps and Google Earth and all the aerials that are available now. It looks like there's a little bit of work going on at the rear of the site, but that might actually be the adjacent property, and it may actually be 2 years old, for all I know, the aerial. But any idea what all that is?
There's no work going on. There's a shed back there, and the people that rent the adjacent property park their work trucks back there.
Okay, so maybe it's just,
Yeah, but there's no
Okay.
improvements or anything like that being made.
okay. Yeah, I think it was one of the images from Google Earth or something. It looked like some bare dirt was back on the back end of the site, but it might have been winter time it was shot, I don't know. Okay, any other, is there anyone in the audience that is here to comment on this application? Not seeing anyone. Caroline, the recommendation, please.
Staff recommends that the Planning Commission, based on the exhibits submitted and the staff report, findings, and recommendation, recommend approval of special exception BOA 7515-2017 to the Board of Appeals with the 7 conditions as listed. And I will mention there is a draft resolution of approval also included in your package that will go to the Board of Appeals.
Yeah, I think to a certain extent, this is sort of maintaining the status quo, which apparently is stable and appropriate, and frankly, was an allowed use under what our vision was for the master plan, and it somehow got turned sideways on some other technical issues. So I don't see any reason to not recommend approval. Any concerns?
None whatsoever.
None.
Okay.
Plus, it was an opportunity to use the word triennial too, which is always good.
Yeah, yeah, it was really cool to see
Good job,
that
Caroline.
in lighting. I mean,
I didn't hear what
Get to
you
use the
said.
word triennial.
It's supposed to triangulation.
Oh, okay, well, I'm glad it kind of fulfilled your,
Maybe not. Just
you
saying.
got your.
He actually got to say it twice.
You guys keep going for this one. All right, real good. Is there a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move that based on the exhibit submitted in the staff report, findings, and recommendations, recommend approval of special exception BOA 7515-2017 to the Board of Appeals with the 7 conditions as previously listed.
Second.
Second, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thanks very much, Caroline. Dr. Wilson?
Thank you.
Good evening.
Yeah.
Next up is a recommendation to the mayor and city council. We are going to, Kurt, are we going to do these simultaneously? Is that the idea?
I would recommend.
Yeah, okay. Well, I guess the point was, instead of me reading both of them and then you saying them all over again,
Correct.
I'll go ahead and hand it off to you for the rezone and the
Concept plan.
concept.
Sure. Well, thank you and good evening. This is the Planning Commission recommendation for zoning map amendment application Z-7496-2017 and the associated concept plan application SP 7595-2017, which also includes a request for a height waiver. Staff notes that the zoning map amendment and concept plan applications each require a separate motion for recommendation. The consolidated joint public hearing on these two applications was held on February 21st, 2017. The Planning Commission voted to close its records on March 17th, 2017, at which time there were 52 exhibits in the rezoning record file and 61 exhibits in the concept plan record file. And of those record exhibits in each file, 14 of those were submitted after the consolidated joint public hearing. The zoning map amendment application is requesting to change the zoning of approximately 5.46 acres from the C2 commercial zone to the CD corridor development zone. And the concept plan proposes to reuse the existing Hyatt House Extended Stay Hotel as a senior rental apartment complex with minor changes to the site and buildings. And let me take a second here to bring up the little map here. This one. So on the screen, hopefully soon, there it is the rendered site plan, conceptual site plan. And as you can see, Skidmore Boulevard provides the primary access to the site. Frederick Avenue is to the southwest, and the exit ramp from Interstate 370 is to the southeast, just to remind everyone where it is. Staff is supportive of both applications and has provided findings in the staff analysis in accordance with sections 24-167G.7A and B. Staff is also supportive of the requested height waiver and has included findings under section 24-160G.5. Staff is available to answer questions from the commission and the applicant's team here as well if you need any clarification from them.
And just to remind everybody, our record's closed. Kirk, would be fair to say that if there's any concerns over the discussion tonight or other issues to be raised, the mayor and council's record is open, right?
That's correct. The mayor and council's record remains open until April 10th. So comments can continue to be submitted for their record.
All right.
And Mr. Chair, I think I missed the joint session, I believe it was. So I'm going to just go ahead and recuse myself. Just don't quite know enough about it. So if you don't mind, as an alternate, stepping in.
Okay.
Great.
I did too. I reviewed the context. I think that I feel comfortable moving forward, but
Okay.
That's fine.
Yeah, and I don't think I was there either, but I spent a lot of time with this today, thanks to Kurt.
Okay. So Phil, you're in? All right. Have you reviewed the record?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I'll open with just a couple issues for the commission to consider. Initially, I was a little bit skeptical about this only because conceptually I was thinking about a purpose-built hotel that was not necessarily tailored for residential use. You know, was that really an appropriate thing? So I zeroed in on the building initially, but I have more comments on that. I think that could come along, and I think we have some discussion that can support that. The zoning, I think, is consistent with the nature of what the master plan was envisioning for 355 and Frederick Avenue anyway, though this wasn't in the actual study area, because I think at that moment, staff probably looked at this as a viable business that was consistent with the CD zone and really didn't feel like it was necessary to tag. But that's something to discuss if we can agree on, or we have any concerns about whether it imports to the master plan. And the third thing I'll just raise is that I think my concerns about the building, if we move forward, are going to address site plan level issues. So I'd be careful to say I wouldn't necessarily require them tonight, but I would make them a part of the discussion. But I'm interested in hearing everybody else's opinions. So maybe you start with the big issue first. Any comments on the zoning itself and the proposal to take this to a use that's...
No.
All right, and I think in terms of the use with the zoning, overall, it's a more stable environment than, say, a transient business
right.
like a hotel,
Right.
and the potential for what that is. So it seems to be a solid decision. On the building and repurposing it for residential, at face value, I was, again, very skeptical because I know how these are developed as very much a purpose-built type of facility. On the other hand, as it would have it, and coincidentally, it was one that was done with residential type living in mind. So I think one of the things I would like to see is a little bit more emphasis on repositioning the building at site plan. So, you know, take away whatever iconic elements are there that would remind you of it being an old extended stay hotel or some, you know, whatever that means. It's a little bit wishy-washy now. We can't necessarily critique it now, but, you know, it should be very much a residential looking place and look like it's been made new to do that. So, no shortcut. Yeah, go ahead.
And one of the reasons why I felt I wanted to participate in this discussion is because I'm very familiar with the facilities. I used to hold some weekly meetings there. And I think that it already has some visuals of potentially an apartment complex. And I think that the retrofitting, because the type of unit that was in place was more of the extended stay, lends itself to that. And I should add, it also blends well within the neighborhood.
Okay, good.
My concern at the previous meeting was that during the presentation, I asked the staff for a, if you will, a comparison, if you will, between the building codes for residential versus a transient place like a hotel or motel. And I was very pleased to see that the staff had done a thorough job in looking at the codes and making those comparisons. So I'm at peace with the exhibits that were given to us, I guess, late this afternoon, that qualified those questions regarding the differences between the building codes, and I'm satisfied with the transition will be successful.
Yeah, and I'll emphasize too that one of those focus questions was on fire and life safety, and it is not only adequate, it is well above any minimum standards for that, and that's an important distinction.
Good.
At least as our fire marshal assessed it in the memo. Any other comments or questions?
I like the proposed transition from existing to, I think it really looks good.
So we'll get a chance to see that at final, I think, and look at that more.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of the concerns that were addressed at, or that were brought up by the community during the joint public hearing and in the record, as well as some comments that I'd have just looking at it, are definitely more site plan related things. At a zoning level, I think it's a great choice. I think it works just fine. There's definitely plenty of discussion to be had about a lot of the community's concerns as far as, you know, where dumpsters go and how site circulation works.
Right.
But
that's not part of this discussion.
Right. Good. Thank you. Yeah, and I do. One of the things I would call into question, because it's a little bit on the zoning side, is there's some. I won't call them accessory structures. That's a more technical term in our zoning ordinance. But there are some sheds on the site that probably need to be looked at. There are uses of fences and screening that probably need to be looked at or refreshed over the course of the final site plan work. So I think the general comment coming out of this for me would be, well, here's one specific, a couple of technical things, just to get it on the record. I think building B shouldn't be left out of the circulation for elevators. I think if I read the site plan correctly, it was, I think it's a two-story building of some of them are 3, some of them are 4. But it was somehow conspicuously left off of the circulation path that would have access to an elevator. So I don't think that's appropriate in a senior housing condition. So again, site plan issue, but that's something to look at. I think the proposal and the presentation on the architecture of the buildings is a great first couple of steps. I think there's maybe 1 or 2 more steps to add a little bit more detail, a little bit more richness to it, and I think they're there. What's missing, and what I hope to see at final site plan, is more about the site. So how the landscaping will be refreshed, how some of the site features will be cleaned up, and you know, like again, fences, guardrails, screens around, compressors, things like that. And I think that was, oh, I know, the last thing I wanted to bring up and just make sure we're clear about, if we're recommending the zoning change, which I think is appropriate, and then we're recommending it based on a concept plan for senior housing, what is the what are the teeth in the approval for senior housing to keep it that way and it doesn't turn into some other form of housing at some point? What is the, how does that work exactly, technically?
I'm assuming you're asking staff that question.
Whoever.
Right.
Whoever knows.
Well, I'll respond. So there's really two, as mentioned in the joint public hearing, there's really two ways that will be enforced. One is through the site plan approval, but the stronger teeth is really through the annexation agreement, which staff is working with the applicant on, and that will restrict the use to senior housing. So
But does that have a technical definition or legal definition so that it?
it will in the annexation agreement.
So it's specific to that annexation agreement and specific to
Correct.
that?
Correct, and even if the current owner were to, sell it in 20 years and a new owner were to purchase it, they would
Mhm.
still be bound by the use restriction in the annexation agreement, so they would not be able to just do any use in the CD zone unless they also looked at, negotiating with the city to
Right.
change that annexation agreement.
Okay.
Which would open it up, obviously, to more of a public process at
Yeah,
that point.
yeah, okay. Phil, you look like you have a question?
Nope.
No, okay.
That was my question.
Okay. Anything else? No? So, Kurt, are your recommendations, we do the height,
Zoning
actually, there's
first.
three. We do the recommendation on the zoning map amendment, the rezone, right?
Correct, do you want me to start
Yeah,
reading?
why don't you go ahead and send that,
Okay,
of course.
so, and so again, each recommendation requires a separate motion, so it might be more efficient if I just read one of them, let you discuss,
Okay,
make a motion,
that'd
then
be
the
great.
next one,
Good
so on
idea.
and so forth. So the first one is that staff recommends the planning commission, based upon the findings presented in the staff analysis, recommend approval of zoning map amendment Z-7496-2017 to the mayor and city council with no conditions.
Any discussion on the proposed rezone?
Nope.
Any
No.
concerns? All right, so to be clear, Matt's recused, Bruce Alley, you're in, Phil, you're in, okay. Is there a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, based upon the findings presented here and recommend approval of the zoning map amendment Z-7496-2017 to the mayor and city council with no conditions.
Second.
It's moved and seconded, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? That passes unanimously. All right, take us to the
Okay,
next step.
so the next is that staff recommends that the planning commission, based upon the findings presented in the staff analysis, recommend approval of the section 24-160G.5 height waiver to the mayor and city council.
Okay. And again, this is, just to be clear, we're not adding height, it's essentially
This
taking
is-
the existing
that's
condition
correct.
within the zone, the definition of the zone, right? All right, is there a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, based upon the findings presented herein, I move that we recommend approval of section 24-160G.5 height waiver to the mayor and city council.
Second.
It's moved and seconded, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that passes unanimously. And the next step, please.
Okay, and the final recommendation, staff recommends that the planning commission, based upon the findings presented in the staff analysis, recommend approval of concept plan SP-7495-2017 to the mayor and city council with the 4 conditions listed in the staff analysis. And if you want, I could read those conditions.
Well, are there any questions on the conditions? Has everybody had a chance to look at those? Everybody all right? Okay, is there a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, based upon the findings presented herein, recommend approval of concept plan SP-7495-2017 to the mayor and city council with the 4 conditions as read into the record.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Thanks very much, Kurt.
Thank you.
It's funny, the concept plan is SP, and I keep stumbling on that because all of
Yeah.
our other prefixes are intuitive to the type of site, which we CKey. Of course, the preliminary plan will be a little bit problematic.
It's based on our software.
Okay. All right, thanks very
We
much.
like it that way.
Next up is our site plan agenda, and tonight we have one, and that is for AFP-7514-2017 Habit Burger at 464 North Frederick Avenue in the CD Corridor Development Zone. This is to build a 2,830 square foot restaurant, and it will be an amendment to final site plan. And presenting from staff is Jasmine Forbes. Good evening, Jasmine.
Good evening. Staff is before you tonight to present amendment to final site plan application AFP-7514-717. Look on the screen. The subject property is located at 464 North Frederick Avenue and is situated within the Gaithersburg Square Shopping Center. The subject property is zoned CD, and the applicant is requesting to demolish the existing grog and beer and wine building to construct a new
Landmark.
2,830 square foot Habit restaurant. So this application comes before the Planning Commission in accordance to Section 24-172A, which requires the Planning Commission to grant amendments to approve final site plans. And this application also comes before the Planning Commission in accordance with Section 24-22A because the applicant's requesting a drive aisle waiver, which is required for Planning Commission approval.
Yep.
I want to note that in the staff report, I know this was a typo. It said 5 conditions and 4 was listed.
Right.
So
Yeah.
originally it's 4 conditions, but the applicant did submit revised plans because staff had some comments, just like some minor editing, labeling errors. So our environmental planner and Public Works has reviewed those revised plans and the applicant has satisfied all of their comments. So we are going to remove conditions number 1 and 2.
Okay.
So I'm going to have Michelle Wright introduce the applicant.
All right.
Good evening,
Good
Mr.
evening.
Chair, members of the Commission and the community. I am with L.D. Reeves and Associates here this evening on behalf of Habit Restaurants, LLC. I'd like to announce that Gaithersburg is the number 2 location in Maryland for introducing Habit Burger to the East Coast. So we're thrilled that we're going to become a member of the business community here in short order. We do plan to open in 2017, so we only have a few months wait for the introduction of the restaurant. I'm going to leave the technical discussion to Tracy Lower of Kimley Horn and to Chris Journey of Design Plus Inc. But I want to highlight the reality that we are within the Gaithersburg Square. It is within the development. We will be a tenant in that location, although we have the responsibility for the demolition and the construction as well as the eventual operation. So we are working within some very well-defined parameters and regulations as far as the shopping center goes. We do have approval from Federal Realty Investment, our landlord, as to our site plan and our architectural design. And the architectural design is special to Gaithersburg Square. It was designed for you. So, having said that, I'd like permission to approach because I would like to pass around a sample menu, and then I will turn it over to the engineer and the architect so that here again they can address your technical comments. There is one other point of history that I would like to make. The Habit Burger Grill originated in California in 1969. It's not a newbie on the block. And in 2014, Consumer Reports did a survey. You know, they're very well known for that. And Habit Burger's Char Burger was selected as the number 1 best tasting burger. So there's some history for you.
Competition. It was Carl's Jr. on this thing.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Tracy Lower. I'm with Kimley Horn. I'm the civil engineer responsible for the project. And I'm just going to run through a few pointers of the site plan as you'll see. It's very quick. So that's our site in the aerial pointed out. And just for a matter of sort of data, the actual shopping center is 16.5 acres. We are, and it contains 211,000 square feet. Our project site is 0.28 acres, so we are 1.7% of the shopping center. The exact square footage of the new building will be built exactly where it is today, 2,830 square feet. On the site, currently, there are 19 parking spaces. We are going to restripe the area of the existing parking area with 15 parking spaces measured 17 by 9 feet. This area will also include a loading area and a trash enclosure. So just to point out a few items of interest on the site plan. First off, there'll be a reconstructed entrance where the door is today. Will be more or less held, and Chris will go into that in his review of the elevation view. There will also be There's a second door on that same side that will be removed and closed off. We're building a ramp up to the building. The handicap parking spaces will be updated per code and with signage. Second point, there is one existing light fixture for that entire area. A photometric analysis showed us that we needed to upgrade the lighting. There are now 3 lighting fixtures proposed. The existing one will be removed, 2 on both sides will be placed, and there'll be a third one very close to the handicap parking spaces, so you can see the circles there. The light fixture matches that of the shopping center, and they're 20 foot in height. Also adding a bike rack near the ramp base. We also have the restriping allowed us to incorporate motorcycle parking in 2 areas. That will be an area where we'll have motorcycle parking, and just to the other side end of the parking lot will be another space that's designated as motorcycle parking. Jasmine mentioned the request for the driveway width waiver, and that is the 24-foot that's circled on the plan. So the request is a waiver of section 24-218E of the code, which requires a 26-foot drive aisle. If you've ever been to the site, which I'm sure you have, that driveway currently measures 18.5 feet. There's been no evidence of a waiver requested in the past. Then that 24 feet will be for 5 spaces in the rear of the building. So Habit Burger recognizes that the 4 large elm trees in the front of the site between their building and the entrance road are extremely valuable, and they want to protect them and assess their health. That was one of the conditions that was added during the site plan review by staff. So we've added very tight tree protection requirements, root pruning requirements, and then also we will, Habit Burger will hire a arborist to assess the existing condition of the trees, report on that, and also provide construction protection of the trees. At this point, I'll turn it over to Chris Journey, who is with Design Plus Inc., to go over the site plan, and here's just a photo of the existing trees.
I'd like to speak just briefly about an element that was important to us, and that is context. For the design of the elevations, context was important to us. We didn't want this new building to create any kind of negative visual impact on this site. So ways that we were able to achieve that were by our selection and thought behind the exterior materials that were selected for this. The brick that was selected matches the brick of the Ross that's in the shopping center beyond. There is also a spring bank nearby, and the brick matches that spring bank as well.
Sandy Spring.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Other elements such as the wood slats, the paint colors, the green living wall, all elements that we picked to help soften the elevation, create a sense of context on this existing site. That wraps up the comments that I had. I just wanted to open up if there are any questions.
I just have kind of a general one for maybe both of you. How does this engage the shopping center parking side? I remember, I've been there a little while, but it's a little bit cut off from the rest of the site, I think. Both kind of in a positive way. There's some fairly mature landscaping, but is there a fairly straightforward pathway for pedestrians, and the view from the shopping center is good for the new building?
There's an access drive aisle that runs behind in our case, it'll be in front because of the orientation of the building, but it runs all the way across horizontally through the shopping center, and then you have the larger parking field for the actual center, and then you have the larger strip of structures that,
Oh, yeah, I guess what I'm leading up to is I know there's a big field of parking, and it comes up fairly close, but doesn't really come too close to where the building is. And what I'm wondering is there a logical path from that parking lot into the restaurant site? Pedestrian path, walkway, sidewalks?
we've
With this-
had discussions about that pedestrian pathway with staff, and I think that's going to be a point that will be resolved as we progress through the final
Okay.
plan.
So right now, that's not on the site plan, is it?
There is a sidewalk that
Mhm.
goes to, that connects, and then we actually had them widen it so that it's a full 5-foot walk, even if you have a little bit of overhang
Mhm.
for the property. Jasmine, if you could bring the site plan up.
But you have to jump across diagonally from the Verizon.
Yes. But if you can highlight the sidewalk, we had them widen that sidewalk and bring it down connection, and you can see the ramp just outside of the dashed line that connects over to the Verizon. And
So what's actually the roadway condition from that ramp to the Verizon diagonal? Is it striped, is it? I can't remember.
as I believe, Ollie was not
Yes,
really
it's
happy
road.
about
It's
that.
road.
He said it was put in and that we wouldn't recommend having a crosswalk at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Well, look at the aerial, might tell you, you can get some
Yeah,
context
you
from
can
that.
see some.
Close up on that.
Right there, if you can zoom in on that.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I kind of know the answer, but it's diagonal across the four-way
They're
intersection.
parking on the
So
side.
it's just a weird condition.
I think it gets behind the other buildings.
Mhm. Well, yeah, or to the front, if you're walking up that sidewalk along the face of.
There you go, there you go.
Yeah, and I'm not really making much more of this than it needs to be. What I'm really leading to is that just whatever happens on the site, there's an honest engagement with what's going on in the
Right.
shopping center, so
Mhm.
that
Right.
if this is a problem, let's fix it. If it's okay the way it is, that's okay too.
We did have a debate about whether it should go straight across, but there's a tree in that island on the
Right.
other side, and so we
Diagonal.
stayed with the curb, or the ramp that would go down, so if you had strollers or carts, then you can go diagonal to the area by the Verizon.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a
area.
strong argument to say you stay with the goat path that people are going to actually use and then protect it rather than try to
Okay.
force them to do it diagonal. But yeah, so I agree with you. Staff just, as long as there's brain cells on it.
Mhm.
Okay, good.
Can I step over?
Yeah,
Are you
sure.
done?
Go ahead.
All right, all right. So I was going to say, the other piece that I didn't see on here was any form of sort of outdoor dining. You have a nice piece of property, a couple of great trees there. You're going to have hopefully a whole bunch of people walking up there and having a burger. I just don't, there's some great activity all the way at the other end of the lot, the Chipotle and the hibachi place there.
Mhm.
And they just get a lot of people around there that are eating outside in spring and fall. It's a really great kind of experience. It's almost a pedestrian environment for this kind of development, so.
I'm smiling because we would love to have that, but there's this little issue called stormwater management.
Yeah. So it's a
And
green area issue?
in order to have enough square feet of structure to be functional for our kitchen and minimum lucrative indoor dining, we were not able to disturb a greater area outside to create more pavement in order to introduce outdoor dining.
What about a deck?
Well, even that
Yeah,
is,
that
that's
would disturb
considered
the area,
impervious
yeah.
too, so
That-
decks are impervious.
Wasted on our own petards.
I do want to say something. I did speak to someone from Federal Realty, and they asked if it was possible to have an outdoor seating, and I told them it would be, but they need to amend their final site plan. So it sounds like, I guess, once this building is built, maybe later on, they'll incorporate outdoor seating.
That would, because the stormwater management is cumulative, they would have to bring that somewhere up to code. That would not prohibit them from putting a picnic table in the grass.
Yeah, I think there's
that's-
some alternative, and even a
right.
little bit of stone dust, right, as long as it's not.
No.
No, okay, never mind.
I assure you, we've looked at all those possibilities.
Grass is good, so I just think some activity would be great, so if staff does come up with a solution, I'm sure they'll share it with you.
Absolutely.
If not, then my apologies.
How many seats are in this restaurant?
Chris, what's our number?
It's, actually, I don't don't have that number.
Should be in the ballpark of 60.
I'm sorry?
Should be in the ballpark of
Around
60.
So here's the,
Oh.
there we go. So it's the layout. Can you
It's a
see that?
substantial restaurant,
Oh.
really.
Let's see how close I came.
2,400 square feet.
Yeah.
Oh, is it in the,
It's not in the description, that's why I asked the question.
Right, all right.
Seat count 60 according to the plan,
Uh,
it's got a table count of 19.
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
That's,
It's hard to read.
Okay,
So,
any other, go ahead.
just have a quick question about delivery. So I guess trucks would have to back into the side for deliveries? On the right?
They have the ability to back or pull either one,
Mhm.
but at some point in the process, there will have to be backing involved.
Mhm.
But of course, the delivery hours are restricted. The last thing we want is to have trucks in the way of our
But-
customers.
And that's what I was thinking about too. Yeah, okay.
and the hours of operation?
The hours of operation are lunchtime through evening time.
Oh, okay,
This is
okay.
not a party location, it's a restaurant, period, the end.
Right.
So the closing time, I think, is in the time range of 10.
Okay.
Okay, good. All right, any other concerns, questions? I'll say it for the record or ask for the record, is anybody here to comment on this application?
That's great.
And seeing nobody,
Good use.
pardon?
It's good use, I mean, I'm just.
Yeah.
Jasmine, why don't you
It's
wrap
good
up with
reuse.
the recommendation, then we'll move into discussion.
Okay, I'm gonna
Two,
announce the two different motions.
two, right.
So the first motion is that staff recommends that the planning commission, based on the exhibit submitted, the applicant's testimony, the staff report, staff findings, and staff recommendation, grant AFP-7514-717 Habit Burger amendment to final site plan approval, finding compliance with section 24-170 and section 24-171 of the city code with the following two conditions. And staff also recommends that the planning commission grant a 24 drive aisle waiver finding conformance with section 24-22A of the city's zoning ordinance.
By the way, is this a franchise or is this a corporate-owned restaurant?
Corporate.
It's corporate-owned, okay. All right. Any concerns, discussion? Want to add any conditions? We took two out.
Can we get the first burger?
Oh,
Just kidding.
It's
Just
less than
kidding.
less than $25, you're okay. Danny hasn't worked his way past the menu yet. It's still in my head, too.
Very good. All right, if there are no other concerns, looks like a good plan. Great to see
Yeah.
some redevelopment
Yeah.
on the site. Sorry to see a long-time business leave, but
Yeah.
I know it's part of the
They
business cycle.
moved, didn't
Yeah, they moved into
Yeah, they
one of
moved.
the tenants in
Did
the
they move
shopping
to the main
center.
center?
Yeah.
the old grog shop.
Win-win.
All right, yes,
Right,
indeed.
right.
Very good. All right, is there a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, I move that the planning commission, based on the exhibit submitted, the application's testimony, the staff report, the staff findings, and staff recommendations, grant AFP 7514-2017 Habit Burger amendment to final site plan approval, finding it in compliance with sections 24-170 and 24-171 of the city code with the two conditions that were read into the record.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously, and then we have to do a waiver.
Mr. Chair, I move that the
Let me
planning.
do something real quick.
Oh,
Just,
okay.
So it's the waiver from 24 feet to?
It's from
26 to
26 to
24.
Or 26 to 24, okay.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Mr.
Any
Chair?
others?
Can I
Go ahead.
talk? Okay. Mr. Chair, I move that the planning commission grant 24, from 26 to 24-foot waiver, drive aisle waiver, finding it in conformance with section 24-222A of the city's zoning ordinance.
Second.
It's moved and seconded, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Good
Look
luck.
forward.
Good
Thank you
luck.
very much.
Seeing you move forward. All right, so that takes us to, from the commission. Phil, may I start with you?
I'm good.
Okay. Ben, thank you for participating tonight. Meant a lot to us. understanding it.
It's just, I just say it's good to see the activity that's going on, you know, the things that came before us and the things that, you know, we've seen before and hopefully to come before us. So it's really good to see
Mhm.
activity and things going on.
Good positive
Yeah,
redevelopment.
Yeah.
Yep, yes, indeed. Yeah. Lloyd?
Nothing further.
All right.
Nothing for me.
Ms. Sally?
Well, I just want to invite everyone to the Kentlands Community Foundation and City of Gaithersburg joint lecture series on April 25th. The theme is revitalization strategies, and it will be actually a panel discussion. We will have representatives from Frederick, Rockville, and Adams Morgan, and what they all have in common is that they have buildings within the same type of footprints that our Main Street has in Main Street. And so the different revitalization strategies that they utilize, the chronology of that they're going to speak to all of those things, and as well, we will be unveiling the results of a Main Street survey that was done on the properties that I can tell you was pretty revealing.
Yeah, good. That's where?
That's at the Arts Barn at 7 p.m. We begin with a wine reception. 7:30 is the actual panel discussion.
And it's on the city's website for more information, is that right? Okay. City website. Everything is on the city's website.
It's on the same day. as
All
the
right,
election.
so that takes us to from staff. I know you have something on there tonight. Who wants to jump in? Right? Okay.
So as you noted, the staff has recently completed a study on the fiscal impact of local designation of Gaithersburg historic districts. The final study and memo has been included in your packets for your review. And just a little background on it, the report studied and compared properties within the city's two historic districts, Brooks Russell Walker and Chestnut Mead, with comparable non-historic neighborhoods, Realty Park, Observatory Heights, and Deer Park. The information gained from the report is intended to be used as a tool as the city pursues potential designation of future historic properties. And then if you have any specific questions about the report, and anyone listening as well who's reviewing it, they can call Chris Berger, our city's preservation planner. He will be able to answer any questions anyone has.
Yeah, I suppose, I'm sure Tom Leonard is on top of it. That's probably a good bullet point for his next newsletter, too.
We actually already took it to the Economic Development Committee and presented it to them.
Yeah, but he does his kind of separate letter about more of that economic perspective.
Can I just ask, what is there an advocacy effort underway to pursue designating other districts, other properties? What was the impetus behind the report? I mean, I think the report's fabulous, but
It was a, we wanted to have it done prior to doing the master plan. And then in the master plan, there'll be recommendations towards that.
I mean, I think the report was excellently, was very well done. As the owner of two of the number of properties in both of the historic districts, I'm obviously interested in the outcomes of it. You know, I'd be a little cautious in making sure, and I think Chris did this very well in the report, making sure we don't confuse correlation with causation when we're looking at this stuff. I think there's lots of reasons why historic districts nationally perform very well, and I'd be very careful in making the jump to say that we should designate other places just for economic benefits. I think the historic preservation benefits are valid, but it's not automatically a one-to-one.
Sure.
It's historic, therefore the property values are going to go up. And I also think we need to be careful in not overstating the benefits of the tax credits. Tax credits are great for ordinary maintenance, but the maintenance to comply with historic district requirements is also more expensive than on a normal home. So my personal experience is it's a wash. You're not saving that much money on tax credits.
Well, I think the study provides at least a foundation for a discussion that should somebody say this is an onerous burden to take on a historic property or to make it historic because I'm then going to be required to spend so much more money and it's going to drive down my property values and all that. I think it's a good way to start the discussion. Well, maybe not. And maybe it really does. Not only does it not hurt, it may actually help.
Oh, I think my experience and from the data in the report, I think we're in a very good place to say that it doesn't hurt.
Right.
But the idea that historic designation is some sort of cure-all for property values or guarantees.
Sure.
There are plenty of sort of planning reasons why historic neighborhoods do well. Mainly, we've looked at all these plans for the Kentlands and for other new neighborhood developments. Well, one of the reasons is historic districts tend to be close to walkable communities to begin with.
Mhm.
So it's a great basis for further discussion.
Great.
It's a great point. There was a Glendenning report a long time ago, Glendenning administration report that went over the state of Maryland. They did 45 communities that had been designated. There's really only about half of them that had an economic benefit. The rest actually did show some economic staidness, and they were almost all commercial districts, but they weren't able to adjust to the market. They weren't able to adjust to different needs for technology, the 9-foot ceiling, all the rest of the stuff. So it does have a mixed bag. So applied in the right place, like this report is very specific to residential neighborhoods, single-family residential neighborhoods, and I thought it was really well done.
Yep, agreed.
Good. All right, where do we go next?
Just a reminder, State of the City is April 13th, next Thursday. If you have not RSVP'd yet, please do. And next Planning Commission meeting is April 19th.
Okay. Trudy, Frank, anything down at your end of the JS this evening?
I have a few things.
Okay.
A few things. Since the last briefing to the Planning Commission on January 18th concerning the master plan updates, staff is continuing to work on the historic preservation element and have finalized the scope of the document and a draft of the introduction. We've been meeting every 2 weeks on a report that Chris has been working on and going through. There's been no advancement on the Parks and Recreation element, and the element itself has been moved by the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Culture to next fiscal year for their annual strategic plan. And staff is anticipating that work on that will resume early in the summer. Also, staff met with the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Bicycle Master Plan liaisons about they're proposing to, and we asked them to include recommendations on state and county roads within the city of Gaithersburg so that we could incorporate that in our transportation plan. And so we'll probably giving you a report on that very soon, just so you can see that we're trying to have connectivity throughout the county.
Yep.
So that our bike paths would connect with theirs.
Right.
Naturally, they know that they can't enforce that, but the Department of Transportation and the SHA will have that ability to enforce, as well as us during the site plan review process.
Good.
And also, the National Institutes of Standards and Technology, better known as NIST, is also updating their 20-year master plan, and they will be having an open house on that coming up in the next couple of months, and you all will receive invitations to go. As you saw, we had several new staff members introduced on Monday night, and they'll be coming with applications to you soon. And lastly, I know that this is very exciting to you, but I found out that on Monday, the ethics disclosure statements were sent out. And so please, please, please get those back to us. We do need a hard signature on those.
Okay. When is the very last minute that I can get that to you?
April 30th. However, what we will try to do, and remember, is to bring blank copies for you.
Yes. And she won't let you leave until you sign it.
That's right.
And those aren't all wrapped up or affected by the coverage of some discrepancy between Maryland's adopted for ethics rules and the city.
No, I think those things are
Entirely separate.
right.
Okay.
And lastly,
State gives their guys until May, though, I'm kidding.
In the March issue of the Planning Magazine, there was 2 articles about making more effective staff reports.
Oh, okay.
So under Greg's leadership, we're going to try something a little different for you next month.
Ooh,
Or, well, in our next meeting.
Color,
Gee whiz.
diagrams.
Change is tough. Change is tough.
What it will try and do is on the very cover, give a summary of, who the applicant is, what the application is, and what the staff recommendation is. And then you can read the report at your leisure, but it won't have a surprise ending.
I don't know.
Sounds good. Okay, thank you. Anything else from any corner of the, all right. Well, if not, have a good evening, and we're adjourned.
Thank you.